Let's take a look at this shower, which is an Aquatronic 3 Plus, actually made by Triton. And as you can see, if I press the power button, no water. First of all, we're going to switch off the power to the shower, and then we're going to remove these two Phillips head screws in the top of the cover right here. And in fact there are two more screws underneath, here and here, so let's remove those as well. And now let's see if we can remove the cover, or if we need to remove the control knobs first. And the front cover comes away without having to remove those control knobs, but make sure that you don't move those from their position once you've pulled the cover off, so that they line up again with the plastic spline shafts inside. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to check this solenoid valve on the input and see if it's bad, and also the switch on the front panel here. Okay, so I just removed the connector to the switch on the front panel so that I can set that aside and take a look in here. Now I've actually already gone ahead and ordered a replacement solenoid valve, and this what's called the stabilizing valve, I think it's called here. And it's a good thing that I have, because it looks like it's been leaking, so it can do with being replaced anyway. I may as well replace both of these parts, and I'll put a link in the description below to where I got those parts from. Now the feed pipe is connected to the inlet solenoid valve here. So I'm going to check to see if this has continuity. It should be about 3 or 4 kiloohms, I believe. And there's just a piece of plastic here, which I guess is intended to stop any water from dripping onto the solenoid. Not very elaborate, that just pulls out, so we'll set that aside for a minute. Now before I go any further, I'm just going to take the shower head and set it down, so that I can more easily access the internals. And I'm just going to turn off this isolator valve as well, just to make sure that if I do disturb the inlet pipe, it's not going to leak water everywhere. Okay, so now let's test the resistance of that solenoid. Make a note that the blue wire is on the bottom connection and the brown on the top. Maybe it doesn't make a difference, but we'll keep it the same way just in case. And putting my probe connections on there, I am seeing complete open circuit, so that tells me that solenoid valve has completely failed. And if I now take a look at my replacement part, my nice shiny replacement part, I'm seeing a resistance of about 3.7 kiloohms. So we're going to go ahead now and try to remove the old solenoid valve and that stabilizer valve right above it, which I also have a replacement for, this one. And I'll show you what it looks like when I've taken out the parts and put the new ones in. Okay, so that I can remove the solenoid valve and this stabilizer valve, I'm going to first have to remove this heater control section by removing that screw down there, and that one down there, and that one down there. That will enable me to have room to move this one up when I disconnect it, and move this one up when I disconnect that. So let's first of all remove that top section, which is actually the temperature control. Okay, having removed those 3 screws, this part is now free. But I'm going to remove the wires from it. Now looking at these, the front wire here goes to the back connection on this side, and the back wire goes to the front connection on that side. And then these 2 connections on the left side of the switch are connected to here via a screw terminal. So we're going to disconnect these and unclip the neon indicator so that I can remove this heater control section altogether. Now of course these connectors right here aren't going to come off easily. They're not just going to slide off, because it looks like there's a little metal clip which is biting into the connector to stop it coming off. So I'm going to have to figure out a way, and when I get it off I'll show what it looks like. Okay, so there's no easy way to get these to slide off. I tried using a small screwdriver to release these clips without success. So I just used brute force method and forced one up, and it did eventually come off. So I'm going to remove the other now, and I'm also going to undo this screw connection right here. So that's the two spade connectors and the screw terminal to disconnect. Okay, that's the two spade terminals disconnected, and now for the screw, and that enables me to lift this heater control section out, being careful not to lose that screw. Now I'll be able to release these other parts and lift them up and away from the water feed. And hopefully, because that isolator valve is off, I shouldn't get any leaks. Next I'm going to remove this stabilizer valve, this horribly rusty one, by removing that screw down there. And hopefully that will allow me to remove that. Let's see. No, in fact there is a second screw down the side there. There. In fact, this still won't budge even with those two screws out, so I'm going to have to release the solenoid valve as well, and take the solenoid valve and this stabilizer valve out together as a complete assembly. In fact, it's even more difficult because to remove this stabilizer valve I've had to release the water heating tank by removing one screw here and two screws here and here. So that I could release the heating tank and move it to the side. And those three screws aren't the same size, so be careful not to mix those up. The two longer ones go at the bottom here, and the shorter one goes at the side. I removed the stabilizer valve separately from the solenoid valve after all, so now we need to remove the bad solenoid valve itself. Okay, so this appears to be a screw fit connector, and I just got a pair of grips on here, unfastened this. It's too tight to unfasten with your fingers, but a pair of grips just loosened it and allowed me to lift that solenoid valve away. So now all I have to do is remove this grey piece of the twist fit connector and put it on the new solenoid valve, and install it and put it back together. And of course removing this from here is not going to be straightforward. It doesn't just pull off easily. So let's first of all try to remove this rubber O-ring seal, which I've done with the help of a small screwdriver. And once that's out, we seem to have another piece in here. Comparing it with the new valve, we see that on the new solenoid valve that's a straight pipe, and this has something on it, so I'm going to try to get that screwdriver under there again and lift this plastic piece out, and that now comes away. So what else do we have? Some green plastic thing, which is probably what's stopping it moving, so I'm going to try to remove that green piece too. I'm not sure if these are designed to be disassembled, but I'm hoping that if I get a screwdriver in these slots it will pull out. Little by little, working it out, hopefully without damaging it. Almost there. And that is off now. Will this grey piece come off now? Don't tell me something else is holding it on. No, it just needs a bit of gentle persuasion. So now we have all of those pieces off, which we now have to refit to the new solenoid valve. So we'll be fitting this grey twist piece first, followed by the green piece which bites into the pipe, followed by that piece, followed by the rubber O-ring seal onto that plastic inlet pipe there. If you look inside of this green section which slides down the pipe, you can see there are little metal blades which allow this to be pushed onto the pipe but not come off, because the sharp end of those blades dig into the plastic pipe. I'm going to put this grey piece on first, of course, and that's just going to slide on easily now. And next I'm going to put the green piece on, but I'm not going to put it, I'm only going to put it as far as the edge. I'm not going to push it right down. So that when I tighten the grey twist piece onto the fitting, it will draw the green piece up the pipe. I'm then going to put this grey plastic insert on the top here and offer this back up to the water inlet in the shower. With this rubber O-ring seal against that green mating surface and the other side of the connector. In fact, I've put that rubber O-ring inside of the fitting there. Now I've just tightened that back up and nipped it up with a pair of grips. Don't do it too tight, but just make sure that it's a nice snug fit. Now before I go any further, I'm going to turn the water back on with that isolator valve, just to be sure that the solenoid valve and twist fit connector aren't leaking. Please don't leak. Okay, water pressure is on and all seems to be good. So I'll go ahead now and put the rest of it back together. I'll just turn off the isolator valve again for a moment, just in case I disturb anything. I've now refitted this stabilizer valve. When you do this, be careful not to lose that little O-ring, rubber O-ring seal which goes on here. And of course there's also another rubber O-ring seal which fits between the solenoid valve and the stabilizer valve. Notice that there's a difference here too. There's a little plastic piece on the new stabilizer valve which wasn't on the old one. So I wondered if that plastic piece would prevent me from getting the solenoid valve right inside the stabilizer valve. So provided that the plastic outlet tube of the solenoid valve goes right inside of the stabilizer valve, it will be fine. So now we're going to refit the screws which we removed, which is one screw in there and one screw behind there, which is more difficult to get to with that plastic piece in the way. Two screws in the solenoid valve, two screws there and there, and one screw right here. Then we'll fit the heater control section again and put it all back together. Okay, I've now refitted this heater control section, making sure that the plastic stud from the stabilizer valve sits underneath the plastic lip in the heater control section, so that when there's water pressure in the stabilizer valve it pushes up on there and switches on the heater elements, and also pushes up this plastic flag to indicate through a window in the cover that there's water pressure in there. And I've also refitted this plastic piece which I removed earlier and reconnected these wires. All we need to do now is refit the front cover and the connection to the power switch and give it a try. It might take a bit of wiggling of the front cover to ensure that the control knobs slide into the splines of the plastic shafts inside. So persevere, be careful and wiggle it a bit and it will go in. Now we just need to refit the front cover screws, two at the top and two at the bottom. You see that I've already turned back on the water pressure and made sure there aren't any leaks. So electrical power back on, and let's give it a go. We have water. And it's nice and warm. So all good. Thanks for watching.